Kurleigh Gittens Jr. joins us, Edmonton Elks receiver. I almost said Esks or Eskimos, but that's in the past. Anyways, let's focus on the present. Before we go to Edmonton, I want to talk about your university. Wilfrid Laurier University has a quarterback coming out, Taylor Elgersma, that's getting a lot of hype. How do you feel about that shine on the Golden Hawks?
Man, it's wonderful. It's great for the program. It's awesome for him, and it's great for youth sports in general. And obviously, like I said, it's great for him because it's just showing like the hard work he's been putting in. We actually COVID year, we're on the same touch football team. Yeah, he was a quarterback for touch. So I put together a team. It was in Waterloo, and he was a quarterback. At that point, he had like a cast on his wrist. He did something to his wrist, and dude just cut it off. I said, "I'm playing." So honestly, from that moment, you could tell he was a very confident guy. And once he got control of like just figured out how to you know um, figure out how to just um, I don't even know the word um, to say. Just sometimes it's hard. Just coming up. You want to play. You have that itch, but once you figure out, everything takes time and it's a process. Obviously we're seeing it right now, so I'm happy for him.
Have you been thrown with him on his way up during his rise?
Yeah. So this off season we've thrown a little bit, and honestly, when I was in Toronto, he did the internship with the CFL, so he was
Two times.
Yeah, twice. Yeah, so both times with I think it was 3 or 2.
Yeah, did 2 with Toronto, 1 with
Yeah.
Hamilton.
Okay. Yeah. So both times I was with him in Toronto, so it was cool.
Could you see his progression?
Oh yeah, you can really see. Like I said, he's willing to learn. He trusts the process. He trusts his process, and he's always been a smart guy. And it's just especially being just what's the word I'm looking for? Just coming to the CFL game and being exposed to the CFL playbooks and going back to the youth sports playbooks. Is that there's a difference. So I think that kind of helped him develop as a quarterback and as a player, help him mature and see being around like the professionals, especially at the quarterback position, what it takes to be successful, and just in general. He'd been around Mac, McLeod, Arbuckle, Chad, all them guys. So for him, to have that experience and then taking that experience and going back to youth sports level, I think that helped his development as a quarterback, and obviously adding his own unique stuff to his game. We're seeing everything kind of unfold.
Does he have the most special arm talent that you've ever seen?
Honestly, I'm biased. Mac's my guy, so for me, it's Mac. But I can see for him, it's just he's special. Even throwing with him the off season like this off season, it's just if the ball comes out hot. I still got blisters just from catching footballs from him. So that says something. And yeah, his arm talent is very special.
Can you see why NFL teams would be intrigued by him, potentially drafting him or signing him as a UDFA?
Oh, 100%. He you just don't go down there and stand out for no reason. He went out there and showed, hey, just because I play, in Canada, don't mean I can't play football. Football is football. Given the opportunity to, and he was given the opportunity to, and he took full advantage of it, and it's showing. So he's a baller.
What do you think that can do for players coming out of youth sports that a quarterback is getting NFL interest and could potentially get a shot in terms of legitimizing the talent? You know how good it is. I know how good it can be, but to the greater football world and creating opportunities more and more for players coming out of youth sports in the NFL and the CFL at the skill positions.
It opens up the door for everyone. It just it'll open up the door to eyes on the youth sports talent that we have, and he's doing it, and and it just shows you don't really necessarily got to go to a D1 school, D2 school, and that big names to have that shot at the NFL. It's just obviously it helps, but if your journey brings you to a youth sports school, you should be proud of where you are, and and just work hard and and try to put your best foot forward, and hopefully get recognized and get seen from those scouts, or get an opportunity to go to those bowl games and whatnot. So Taylor is, he's, for him, going there and performing and opens the door for the scouts. And now it's like, hey, let's see what's happening over here. And, guys just got to keep doing what they're doing. And, hopefully, get, opportunities, which, Taylor is, helping, get more, scouts and eyes over here.
You're entering a year where Trey Ford, a U Sports quarterback, is the franchise guy in Edmonton, continuing to open up some of those opportunities. What's that transition going to be like for you away from, you said, your guy, McLeod Bethel Thompson?
It'll be good. It'll be good. Football's football. And yeah, for me, it's just, just being who I am, and just the football player I am, and the person I am, just, being there for Trey, whatever Trey needs, I'll be there. I'll be that person. I'll be that guy for him. And just for him knowing, hey, it's me and you now, I got you. You know what I mean? Vice versa. I hope that he knows that, hey, like, we're here now. It's 2025. You can rely on me. Whenever you want, wherever, whatever you need. I'll be the guy for you. And just, I want him to know that, I trust him. I trust him fully, and hopefully he can, trust me fully. And trust um, isn't given. I want to earn his trust. Vice versa. I want him to earn my trust, and go from there. And let's have fun. Let's play ball. Let's put on for the Waterloo community.
That's where I wanted to go next. Is, did you and Trey play against each other in the Battle of Waterloo?
Yeah, I think we played one. I want to say we spoke about it this past last year. I think he said once. I think he beat us once. Yes, but I want to say maybe we played twice. So
You might have gotten back some revenge.
I think we beat him. I've only ever lost him once in Waterloo. So, and that's when my last year, which was embarrassing.
We're on to new adventures here in
Yes.
2025. It
Yeah.
sounds like you're talking about being the Elks' number one receiver, and we've seen that from you in the past. Now, Ed Hervey has talked about that guy emerging in training camp. Do you feel like that's your mantle to take in camp, or is it already there?
Nah, I don't really think about it like that. It is what it is. Football is football. I just am going in there to, be the best player that I can be, and help the team out, wherever they need help at. And, just being that person. And I don't really think about it as just, going in there and, taking that mantle as being the number one receiver. Like, I play football, I play football to help the team win, and that's my job. I'm not there to, to, hey, I'm the number one receiver. I don't care about that. I don't care about the labels or the titles or none of that. I'm just here to help the Edmonton Elks be, the best version we can be in 2025. And if that happens to be halfway through the season, people want to label me as the number one receiver, sure, go ahead. I know what I can do as a receiver, given opportunities, and I've shown it. And it's not like I haven't. I've been consistent over the years I've played, and I just want to keep that same consistency. And yeah, we got great receivers on our receiving core, and I feel like as long as we come in, having that mindset as, hey, we're gonna help each other, you know, be the best offense that we can be, and help each other, get open and do all that fun stuff. Everyone will, have a successful year.
Your general manager, Ed Hervey, gave his definition of superstar and said that there aren't any in the CFL.
Yeah.
As a player on his team, how did that make you feel, and what's your definition?
I didn't really care, to be honest with you, because that shit. Oh, sorry, that stuff don't affect me. It is what it is. It's his opinion, and we all got a right. We all got a right to state our opinions. And my opinions, I know who I am as a person and a player. And for me, like, my mindset doesn't change. The way I approach the game, the way I approach the off season doesn't change. At the end of the day, I'm going to be me, and I feel like that's all that matters. Like, once you know yourself as a person as a player, life just becomes a lot easier. And especially football. Football is simple.
Do you have a definition of superstar? Do you think that there are any in the CFL?
You know, my opinion, yeah, we definitely got superstars and all stars, all that fun stuff. I feel like everybody's a superstar and all star in their own way. If you look at a guy like Kenny Lawler. If you don't think he's a superstar, then I don't know. For me personally, like I think he's he's a superstar, but that's just my opinion. Um, but yeah, I feel like I don't really want to contradict anybody here, but for me personally, I just like it all goes back to if you think you're a superstar, you think that's cool. You know what I mean? If you don't think that, that's fine as well too. I don't think we need validation from other people to tell you if you're a superstar or all star or all that. You got to know if you're him or you're not. It all comes down to it.
Yeah, and you seem content with yourself, which is all that really matters.
Yeah, I know who I am as a player. I know I'm working, I'm working towards, obviously, being better at my craft and being better at just being an overall football player. But for the most part, um, I'm just, enjoying this journey of just becoming the best version of Curly.
What was it like for you to watch that process play out with Eugene Lewis, considering that he was a teammate
Yeah,
of yours?
process of
Him not returning to the Elks.
it's a business, man. This is business, and I got love for Gino, and you know, um, he's a great football player. But like it's a business. One thing I've learned the hard way, it's business. I signed a 3-year contract with Toronto going into the 2023 season. I got hurt and I got traded. So, I experienced it a little bit, it hurt, but then you understand it's a business. So, that's all I can say. It's a business, and yeah, you do what you got to do what you got to do because what's best for you, and go from there.
Have you had any communication with him since he signed with Ottawa?
Not as much. I think he's been busy in his off season. I see videos. I like a little video, whatever here and there, but nothing, nothing too crazy.
From a monetary aspect, leaving makes you the highest paid receiver on the team. So do you feel any more weight on your shoulders, or does it go back to where you were talking about? You don't care about titles and all that stuff, it's just about the football.
No, I don't really care about the titles. Yeah, you are technically right. That is a fact, but I don't really care. You know what I mean? And that doesn't really affect me. When I signed my contract in 2023, I won't lie, it affected me a little bit just because, I was a little younger then, and, I was still growing, still am right now, still maturing. So, you get, you kind of, you get that money and you put added pressure to yourself. It's just a natural thing. And certain games, obviously, in football, you can't control if the ball doesn't come. You can't control certain things. You can be open, but if the ball doesn't come. I kind of let that affect me in a way mentally, and I learned from that situation. I learned from that year, and now it's just about just focusing on about football, and everything else really it doesn't matter. It's just football. What happens on the football field, and bad game, good game. Can't get too high, can't get too low. We just moving on.
One of your former teammates from Toronto, Robbie Smith, has come over to Edmonton. Got paid a lot of money to do so, $270,000.
Yeah.
Does he kid you that he's beating you there from the money aspect?
No, I think I made a joke at my Hall of Fame speech uh, at Laurier. Robbie's my best friend, and he's came down and supported me and all that. And I'm like, man, you're the standard now and all that. But he deserves it, man. If you know Robbie, Robbie's just he's a great person. He just became a dad, and he deserves everything that he's gotten. And I'm proud, really proud of him. But I told him now he's a standard, So you're there now. I got something I can, I'm working towards.
You said you're best friends. Are you guys gonna room together, or what was the? Sorry, let's go back one step.
Yeah.
What was the recruiting process like?
I didn't say anything, but he knows.
Nothing.
He knows, but I don't gotta say anything. He knows. Last year was the first year not being teammates, and it felt weird. It felt super weird. I've been playing 4 years at Laurier. We got drafted by the same team, and last year it just felt weird. And obviously, he hits me. He calls me. He's like, "Oh, we might be. There's a possibility that we're teammates." It's like, don't lie to me. You know what I mean? All that fun stuff. Especially, there's a lot of uncertainties in Edmonton and whatnot. But once everything was finalized and all that, so now we're going to be teammates again in training camp, which we were in the first year. Or first year in the CFL.
It feels like it's a homecoming in a way.
Yeah, it feels great to have a whole bunch of guys that you're familiar with.
Will you guys room together?
Yeah, we're gonna room together in just for training camp because he's bringing his family up, so he's gonna have his own place with his family and whatnot. But for training camp, yeah, we're together.
Got you. What's Kurleigh Gittens doing in the off season to get ready for the 2025 year?
Just doing the same thing I've been doing for the past few off season. I try to kind of stick to the same routine and consistency I've been sticking to, and just training, just being a father on my day to day basis, and just keeping my head down, and just kind of prepping my mind just to how the football season gonna go, the ups, the downs, just kind of trying to level, just kind of think of different scenarios, put myself in different scenarios that I can, kind of, see myself in, and just prepare myself mentally for the, football is a mental game. So, trying to prepare my mind as best as I can, and just appreciating what I got in the moment in the off season, and, life is beautiful, and just appreciate that, and just taking that appreciation that to football, and just kind of try to ride the wave.
For sure, man. Lots of excitement around the Elks this season, and in particular with you and the connection you can make with Trey Ford. Thanks for taking some time. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Yeah, thank you.